So I know that there are things that can be done in the genre. That's not an argument saying all comic book movies are terrible and they shouldn't be made. No, of course they should be made. The slate, though, the fact that it is no longer broad-based for theatrical by the studios means that they have forced a smaller and smaller and smaller segment of the population to like it. I'm going to make him an offer he can't refuse. And you know instantly what movie that is.
Right.
You cannot quote me a single line from Aquaman. You can't. So what does that mean? It means the cultural and Academy Awards, they know it.
Yeah.
They sit around and they say, why is the viewership? Why is it going down?
Yeah.
It's going down because we did not make the investment in the broad-based engagement with the product. I know, maybe a movie that was made, Ang Lee movie Ice Storm, maybe that didn't make $1 billion, but you know what? It maintained broad-based interest.
Exactly.
So we've got to force it back. And you know what? The studios should be willing to lose money for a couple of years on art film divisions. And in the end, they will be happier.
It's here. You hear what I'm telling you? In my mind, I created it. I built you. I created it. And it's real. Don't you understand?
Hello everyone and welcome to Struggle Session. I am your host Leslie Lee III. Thank you so much for joining us once again. Thank you all so much for listening, for subscribing, whether it's on patreon.com/struggle session or sesh.show, strugglesession.substack.com. If you're listening to us on Spreaker, or if you're telling a friend about it, leaving us those 5-star reviews, your support means the world. In fact, it means more than ever now. I think you all know I've been dealing with long COVID. And folks, off the top, COVID's still a problem. Be like Bugman. Stay masked up. Please. Keep yourself safe. You don't want to get this. But your support now means more than ever because, as I said, I was going through a really rough patch these past couple of months. And unfortunately, I've had to step away from my day job once again. And I just want to say, if my students are listening, go read a book. Go write in your journal. But turn off this podcast. It's not for you. But thank you for my listeners here. It means the world. It really means the world. And as a thank you for your patience and continued support, I'm going to be dropping 3 massive episodes this week. At the top of the show, you heard a clip from director James Gray, where he talks about the trickle-down effect of the MCU's cultural dominance that's actually led to cinema being less important to people than possibly ever. I'm going to be talking about that and so much more with my guest today, writer, filmmaker, host of the Junk Filter podcast, Jesse Hawken, returning champion. I talked with Jesse about the seeming impending demise of the MCU, at least as the dominant force in cinema. You know, you still got the Barbie CU out there. You got Kongzilla going strong. But the MCU, the Marvels, total flop. I get into it with Jesse. We smoked that whole MCU pack. Last time Jesse was here, we talked the Beatles. We did a brief update on those boys from Liverpool and the potential of there being a Beatles AI album that's coming up right now. But coming Wednesday, health permitting, I talked with writer Joe Mayall to discuss The Shield and his article in Jacobin titled 20 years ago, The Shield captured the brokenness of American policing. It's a fascinating article about one of my favorite shows of all time. If you have not seen The Shield, if you don't know about the strike team, if you don't know Claudette and Dutch and Lim and Shane, and of course Vic Mackey, you gotta check it out. One of the greatest shows of all time. And even though it's this over-the-top action soap opera procedural, it presents a much more authentic view of policing than, of course, shows like Law and Order, but even shows like The Wire. It's heavily based on the LAPD Rampart scandal. Go ahead and read that Wikipedia page if you have not. That's coming up on Wednesday, the Shield episode. And on Friday, huge show. Just in time for WrestleMania weekend, I'll be joined by Josie Reisman, author of the New York Times bestseller, Ringmaster, Vince McMahon and the Unmaking of America. It was one of my absolute favorite books from last year, besides, of course, Kill the Rich by Jack Allison and Kate Shapiro, killtherich.com. But it's a fascinating book, even if you're not a wrestling fan. I think it's even more interesting for non-wrestling fans because it shows how the McMahon story was always so much bigger than Hulk Hogan and Monday Night Raw. It involved national politics, the Trump administration, the mega corporations that worked with the WWE, like Disney and NBC Universal. They were all in bed with this man who is now being sued for sex trafficking. A lot of that going around lately. And yes, I'll save you the search. Vince and Diddy did know each other. My belief is that everyone with a private plane should just be raided. Just off top. If we're going to keep giving the FBI and DHS money, put it to some good use. That interview with Josie, where we talk about her amazing book, that's coming on Friday. But right now, let's get into today's show. I know you're going to love it. Thank you so much for listening. Again, for subscribing at sesh.show. Hit us up on the voicemail at the same address or send me an email, thestrugglesession@gmail.com. Thank you all so much. So, Jesse, last time we talked, we were actually talking about another slightly deranged fandom, the Beatles, Beatlemania. And it was actually a really fun episode where we got to talk about Get Back, Peter Jackson's, really riveting documentary where Paul, George, John, and Ringo are just dudes hanging out and being cool and chill. And I liked it because it felt so real. It felt like you were getting like a glimpse into the real people who they really are, a real moment in time. And I'm sure that Peter Jackson, was very proud of that, bringing that realness, not selling anything, not bringing any weird, of his own weird predilections to, but I did hear that there has been an update and Peter Jackson has put out something, new, Beatles related.
Mm-hmm. He did a music video for their final song, and it's not very good.
It was just hideous to look at.
Yeah.
Like what is two old Beatles and two like cut out green screen Beatles like doing discordant sort of dances over this kind of middling, song that could have been that didn't really need to come out.
It sounded like sort of an Oasis tribute to the Beatles from the late 90s. It had late 90s vibes to it. I don't think it should count as a cameo if the actor is not aware that they're in it. Like, you can't use a dead person and then say, John's here.
This is not the first time that people have put out posthumous music videos for bands. Like, there's a way to do it, and I've never seen it done in such a weird and off-putting and unsettling way as this.
It reminded me a little bit of on Cinema when Tim Heidecker brings his dead son back, who's been animated to be 18 or something. It's digital grave robbery is what it is.
And I gotta say, Ringo did not dress up for this this recording session at all. He looks like he just like got off the jet with Diddy and fucking Travis Barker, and that's kind of the vibe he's giving off.
Do you remember when Natalie Cole did a duet version of Unforgettable with her father, Nat King Cole?
Yes,
and that was really grim. But that was also a time when you didn't really see a lot of that kind of stuff happening. But we live in this age now where they just keep bringing people back to us, and sometimes they're dead and they keep bringing them back to us. I would rather never see people again once they're dead.
It's only a matter of time before the Beatles AI album comes out,
Yeah.
right? Like I'm like that is going to happen.
Yeah. I saw the trailer for the new Ghostbusters movie, and they worked Bill Murray into it. And he must know that when he's dead, they are going to bring him back digitally for more Ghostbusters movies. He must know that.
Bill Murray is in this, canceled as Bill Murray is in this.
Yeah, him and Dan Aykroyd appear to be in this film. But in the last Ghostbusters movie, they brought the dead Harold Ramis back.
Yeah.
And, Bill Murray looks really ill at ease in the scene, because I think he knows in his heart of hearts that he will be doing Ghostbusters movies for decades after he passes away.
Yeah, his contract extends into the afterlife.
Do you remember when the Sony email hack happened with North Korea? And some of the fun facts about what was going on behind the scenes at Sony was that they were planning on suing Bill Murray to force him to be in a Ghostbusters movie.
Yes.
So when I see him in these films, I just know that he's only doing this because there's an impending lawsuit.
All right. So diving into today's topic, R.I.P. bozos, Kevin Feige. Your time has come.
Get yourself buried, Kevin Feige.
Finally. It is time perhaps to consider and look back on the past 15 years of cultural dominance that the MCU has imposed upon the world, because that shit is over, son. Captain Marvel, excuse me, I can't even get the name of the film right, and that's one of the many problems of this movie. Excuse me, The Marvels, whatever that is, which is supposed to be a sequel to Captain Marvel, which made $1 billion. They didn't want to call it Captain Marvel 2 for some reason. I don't know why.
They did, and it is called Captain Marvel 2 in China, and it actually got a release in China. That Marvel hasn't had a foothold in China for a long time. I think it finally thawed this year. But like guys like Simu Liu and Chloe Zhao said some very mild things criticizing China, and as a result, their movies were banned in the People's Republic.
The reason the first Guardians of the Galaxy was considered in part such a credible success is because it got released in China and made like an extra $80 million that's a film like Suicide Squad didn't get, because it didn't get released in China. And Marvel has been trying to get stuff in China for a while, and they kept failing. They made those movies like The Eternals and Shang-Chi were made in part in hopes of getting in China. Didn't happen. And then they get the Marvels into China, and it's their biggest flop of all time. I guess timing is everything, I guess.
And speaking of timing is everything, the actors' strike ended a couple of days before the Marvels was released.
Yes.
So they couldn't even promote it. Like, if it happened next week, then they'd have time to do all the premieres and all the press. But this movie is a dead person walking.
Yeah.
It made $47 million in North America. Like, Morbius made a little bit less than that.
And this was a movie with a budget of, $274 million, if I'm looking at
and you can tack another 125 on that in terms of marketing. Let's call it $400 million.
Whew, boy. All right. So there's two things to talk about. There's the Marvels film itself, and then there's the sort of what it meant what it means in the larger scheme of things, where the MCU is in our culture. So before we dive into the film itself, which I don't know how much we need to talk about, I could talk about it a lot, but it's not, we'll get to it. But I kind of want to peel back a bit, go back, think about those 15 years ago when this whole thing started, and we didn't know that every single thing that was in movie theaters for a while was just going to be these movies. Iron Man, Robert Downey Jr. I see people talking about it online. I don't even look at the trailer, because for years, and I think maybe since I was like in middle school, there have been rumors in Wizard magazine that they were going to make Iron Man with Tom Cruise.
Oh, man.
And Tom's my dude. So for years, I'm waiting for Tom Cruise to be Iron Man. It had been announced like a couple of times, semi-seriously. But when they finally get it going, it's this motherfucker Robert Downey Jr. And I'm like, I don't give a shit. I didn't watch that Iron Man 1. I didn't watch Iron Man 2. Didn't watch Captain America. Didn't watch Hulk until I was on a plane for several hours. I think maybe a international flight. And then I finally caught up and kind of saw what was going on. I didn't like it. I didn't enjoy it, but I watched it on the plane. And that's where I've seen most Marvel movies. They've never really won me over. I've never really gotten them. I've never really enjoyed most of them. And Jesse, I'm just wondering, where were you when you first saw Iron Man? Where were you when you first heard about the MCU? Because you are on record as possibly the number one MCU hater besides myself. Even though I don't really think I hate him, I call it like I see him. I call it right down the middle.
Mm-hmm. Well, what I hate about these things is the monopolization of everything around it, like we now have seen the effects of 15 years of superhero movies on a motherfucker. Like people are now afraid of sex scenes in movies, and that's because of these stupid superhero movies. People are they get really angry at the idea that their taste is not necessarily art. Like they have had a sort of the hegemony over theatrical exhibition for so long, and like people keep going and they keep thinking that the next part is going to lead to the next part. Like it's like entertainment on the installment plan is how I've talked about it. Like at their worst, a Marvel movie is a feature-length advertisement for the next Marvel movie. So people keep going and then get compelled to see the next one. And eventually you're kind of locked into it. It's like I knew people who taped The Simpsons every Sunday because it was on, but they had not watched them. They were just taping them because it had become rote behavior. Like, I've got to have all the episodes of The Simpsons on tape. But they don't like the show anymore. They just still do it because they used to like it. And they have this weird idea that I've got to keep watching it since I've spent this much time watching it. It's like a sunk cost fallacy. I don't like them anymore, but I got to keep watching them because I have to have a perfect record. Nobody's going to be checking the paperwork to make sure that you've seen all the MCU movies. And so when Endgame came out in 2019, I think for a great majority of the audience, they were like, great, my gig is over. I've done my time. This stuff is now over. I can now get on with my life. And Marvel was like, let's keep it going. They kept on making things. Like they put a Black Widow movie out, even though the character died.
Brain splattered, committed suicide in one of the biggest movies of all time. She's dead. Why are you putting out her movie? And that's such a funny story too, because and I think she ended up, we talked about it on the show, she ended up having to sue over the profits about it. Because like she had been trying to, Scarlett Johansson, ScarJo, have been trying to get that movie made for a long time. Mm-hmm. And it's worth mentioning, since we're talking about the Marvels, that the reason ultimately she had such trouble getting it done was because like they weren't that interested in putting a female superhero movie out. I mean, I don't know what else to say. Like it took like a decade until the character was literally dead before they got her solo movie out, when they had been talking about it since like the start of it. So it was because as we'll talk about with the Marvels, one of the big things that the MCU has prided itself on is its diversity, is its featuring of, diverse superheroes, female superheroes, black superheroes,
It took but it took them 20 movies to get around to having a black superhero.
Exactly. So they get all this credit for ultimately being less racist and sexist than they used to be. Yeah. Back themselves by their own, choices.
And, I know, I'm a white guy, so my interests are catered to all the time. Superhero movies have been made for white dudes for the most part, but there was sort of a universality to it. It's not like you're not allowed to enjoy these movies if you're, not white. But the fact that it was so slanted against having women in the films or having people of color in the films, like Marvel's actually responsible for a lot of that paucity. Like it's their universe that has excluded these people for so long. And then they wanted to have it both ways and say, oh, finally a black superhero, or finally a female superhero. And it's like, motherfucker, one of the best Marvel movies, period, is Blade, which was one of the first superhero movies. And they like to pretend it doesn't exist.
Besides, the Marvel's box office disaster, there was an article in Variety that came out, and it was a cover story with "Is Marvel in Trouble?" And one of the many things they talked about how they kept putting out content after content, more and more content after Endgame. The series ends, and then they decide to invest millions and millions of dollars in the Disney Plus stuff, which nobody watched. Like, they spent like $250 million on Secret Invasion, which people just did not care about, did not watch.
Yeah.
Another thing they talked about is that they're having trouble getting certain things made, and one of those things is Blade. They announced years ago now that Mahershala Ali was going to be the new Blade. They announced the director. I don't think any aspects of the script leaked until now recently. In the Variety article was that because it had been through so many iterations, it ended up being a film where Blade would be the fourth lead in the movie. It was a female-led movie with three unnamed female characters apparently teaching life lessons to Blade. So, which is just such a strange thing, because I don't know. Back in my day, my Blade learned how to deal with his trauma by killing vampires.
Yes.
Back in my day. That's what my Blade did. It's not hard to make a Blade movie. All right. You don't have to overthink it. And the fact that a Blade movie with Mahershala Ali, who's a very popular actor, is in development hell for 5 years is just absurd.
It's walled him off from other roles. What's he done in the last couple of years? He seems to be tied up now because he's supposed to be in the waiting room for years, waiting for this Blade movie to start. They keep pulling the production. They keep firing directors and rewriting the scripts. But the problem as well is that I believe they intend to make a PG-13 Blade movie, and Blade needs to be a hard R. It needs to be super violent. It's a movie about a vampire war. How can you do that at a PG-13 level?
I think I did see an article come across my feed that they did announce that it's supposed to be R, but that came after the Variety article. So who knows? It might be complete bullshit just to kind of put a positive spin on it. But, you mentioned, Ali being tied up in the MCU. There was a story, and this is a kind of another, chink in the MCU armor, because not a lot of actors have been very critical of the MCU or its place in culture, how it's dominated, the Hollywood, basically, and taken it over and changed the type of movies you can make now. You are no longer, as an actor, looking forward to going on, these exotic locations with Martin Scorsese. It's no, you're going to be in a strip mall in Atlanta and Taika Waititi is going to be on a Zoom call, directing you for the next, 2 years that this is in post-production. It's a completely different, it's not what you signed up for as an actor. And our boy, the Bear, Jeremy Allen White, while he's on his press tour for his movie, The Iron Claw, about the Von Erich wrestling family, he, gave a couple of quotes about how he had a meeting for a kind of Marvel-y movie, and he had an attitude. He said, I played it all wrong. I was like, tell me about why I should do your movie. And they were like, fuck you. And I was like, right on.
Yeah.
He didn't come in needing to be, it locked down for that 3-picture contract. With all that post-production. He was like, he had another quote. He was like, I don't know how it happened where being a superhero became the height of your aspirations as an actor.
Yeah. Well, you've got actors like, Chris Evans is an actor of limited range, in my opinion. And Tom Holland, you've got these actors who are keen, they want to be in this stuff. They have absolutely no problem with being the face of a superhero and making tons of money. And that's their decision. But, I feel that there are all these great actors that are being tied up in the Marvel universe, I mean, they want hot properties. They want to grab independent film directors like Nia DaCosta and the guy who made Short Term 12 directed Shang-Chi, and Anna Fleck and Ryan Bowden directed Captain Marvel. Like, these are, quality American independent filmmakers who are going for what must be a sizable paycheck when you come from the world of independent cinema. But then they find themselves, in a green screen room, doing all this stuff, telling the actors to talk to this tennis ball, on a string. And then they have no say in the post-production, and all the special effects and action sequences are pre-visualized and given to them by the studio. Nia DaCosta got in some stick recently when she admitted that she left post-production on the Marvels to go work on something else. I have no problem with that, because she's never going to win any of the creative arguments that she gets into with Kevin Feige. So why not? And the movie had been moved 4 times. She has to get on with the rest of her career. She gave up 2 years of her life for this movie. So I don't begrudge a filmmaker by just saying, okay, you know what? Since you know what you're going to put out, the movie you want to put out, you don't need me anymore.
All right. So we've talked around it enough. Let's get into the Marvels. I watched it today. This is the first time I've ever said this on this show, but I'm going to say it. I watched the cam rip. I did it. And I'm saying it because the ad sequences that framed the cam rip, the little advertisements for the gambling company, were some of the most exciting parts of this movie, if I'm being honest.
Yeah. It's fun to watch a piece of shit in a sort of cam rip form, like watching Sound of Freedom with ads for a casino in Macau. That's the way you want to be.
Yeah, and as people told me, actually, it's not that bad of an idea because the CGI is not that good and might be unfinished in the version that's in theater. So watching it in a lower resolution, you're getting closer to the artist's vision. And man, look, Nia DaCosta, I'm sure she is a wonderful director. So please, and I'm sure she maybe directed half of this, maybe, if we're being honest with you. So let's leave her out of this. The actors, I actually think, for the most part, did a pretty good job. I think they did what they could with it. I actually really liked the performance of the woman who plays Kamala Khan's mother. I think her name is Zenobia Shroff. She's actually very funny. And if there was a Nickelodeon TV show where she played the mother, and my niece wanted to watch it when I was babysitting her, I would be having a blast with it. Okay,
but this movie has TV movie vibes to it. That's the first thing you have to say about it. Like, Brie Larson is a movie star. It's been hard to remember that lately because, she had such promise when she showed up and she won an Oscar, and then she went for the paychecks, and she was selling fucking NFTs for a while too. Like, she became a sort of tech bro, being in the Fast and the Furious series and being in Captain Marvel. Like the first thing that you have to say about Captain Marvel is like, who is she?
Yes. Okay. Yes. And Brie Larson is the one actor in this movie who I cannot praise.
Yeah.
This is one of the deadest, most lifeless performances that I've ever seen from a main character. Not that she's given anything to work with, but even the one-liners is just like, she might as well be Zoom calling in. Like, it might as well be the AI Brie Larson as far as all the emoting that's going on. But again, it's like, I don't know how much of that is her fault. I can't blame her for not wanting to be there. I can't blame her for voting in. Like, there's nothing wrong. Like, fine, take the Disney money. Don't be there. But man, it's not a compelling character, and there's no life given to it. I have no idea, like, what her job is. What is Captain Marvel doing at the beginning of this movie? It seems like she's trying to spy on some peace talks to sabotage them because they did on an asteroid or something. It's so bizarre.
She's on a space station, and so is Nick Fury.
Yes.
Like
half this movie takes place in space because I guess that's a thing in MCU now. It started off as like ground level superheroes in New York, and now it's just like everybody's in space.
but they're only seemingly concerned with Earth.
Yes. Like I couldn't tell where the space station was. Was it near Earth? Was it near the refugee scroll planet? Was it near the weird ass like almost K-pop Bollywood planet? Or was it on like it was so hard to tell what was going on, where these people were.
Well, it takes everybody 3 milliseconds to get from point A to point B, so
Yes.
you have no sense of the scale of the universe.
Okay, so if you've watched the trailer, I would recommend watching the trailer because it actually gives it's one of the best trailers as far as actually giving the idea of the hectic pacing and chaotic plotting of this movie. Like every like important moment from like the first 30 minutes of the movie is in the trailer verbatim, like line for line. They like there's like everything that's kind of the pace that it sets. Just you immediately jump into this conceit where all the Marvel's characters are swapping places. Two problems with that. You have no idea who the fuck the other two Marvel characters are unless you have watched the Disney Plus shows. I'm not even, after watching the movie, I don't even know which Disney Plus show I need to watch. And other problem is, Captain Marvel, besides not having any kind of real character, she is like super ridiculously overpowered in such a sense that, okay, she can swap like she can be flying out in outer space, right? But then she can immediately swap places with Kamala Khan, and it's like Kamala Khan doesn't start suffocating because she's in space. They don't like do that sort of thing with it where there's some vulnerability. And then of course Captain Marvel, she can just fly back to the place that she was at super incredible high speed. So the whole body swapping thing like loses the stakes fairly quickly.
Yeah. Well, you don't get a sense during the body swapping of what the other two planes of action are. Like you're here and then you're not there anymore. You're somewhere else. Like there's no dynamism to it. It's like, oh, now we're here. It's just so anticlimactic. It's like borderline incoherent though.
Yeah, it really is borderline incoherent in those early moments. Like I rarely find myself wishing a Marvel film was longer, but it is missing all the scenes that kind of like introduce who the fuck these characters are. Why are they on a space station? Why is this happening? They just skip over all of that and immediately get into the three-way Freaky Friday stuff and fight scenes with these. I guess the Kree are still the villains, and look.
But
I hate the Marvel sci-fi stuff. I even hate it in the comics mostly. Some of it's good. Some of the Jim Starlin stuff is good, but so all the aliens in the MCU, especially when we get to this point now, they're not even like Star Trek. We have bumpy head aliens. Like they just have different hairstyles, and that makes them an alien species. And that just does not work for me, except for the Skrull, who are shapeshifters, and they don't do one goddamn shapeshift this whole entire movie. Not even a one of them.
These are mainstream films. Like Marvel's opened on 4,000 screens in the United States. They presume, I suppose, when they start making these things, because they also take years to make, and the pandemic added a new wrinkle of the timeline on that. They presume that you were going to love this whole Disney Plus channel and that you were going to watch WandaVision, and then you were going to watch Ms. Marvel, and then you were going to watch Secret Invasion, and you've already seen Captain Marvel, and you've already seen Hawkeye, because at the end of the movie, they even tie into Hawkeye. But what about somebody like me who just walks in off the street to watch a movie? I don't know who the fucking Krees are or the Skrills. It's like
I didn't even think about that part. I literally did not even consider like, why the fuck would you know what the Skrull or the Kree are? Jesus Christ! Yeah.
Like it would be like deciding to go to a church service for a religion that you don't belong to. It's like, what the fuck are all these rites and rituals? I don't know what they're talking about. But these are wide, they're spending $270 million on a movie that seems to be made for about 3,500 people.
And man, look, you mentioned the Disney Plus stuff. the film, once it gets going, really is indistinguishable from like The Mandalorian as far as like production value goes.
It looks like
production value goes.
Yeah, that musical planet. It looked like a TV show. Like it looked like The Good Place had an episode where they went to, the singing town. Like there's nothing cinematic about it. I mean, they can put a bunch of shit on the screen, but it's not staged in an interesting way. And the other thing that bugs me about all these movies is the tone problems. Like this wacky musical planet, but a few minutes ago we just saw like millions of people die.
Yes, like I should mention, like all the like Captain Marvel at one point is trying to save the Skrull who are refugees. And look, I can't get into it. But it's worth mentioning. They are supposed to be some sort of. People said they were analogs for the Jewish diaspora. Right. In Captain Marvel 1. I cannot get into it right now, but just saying that in this one, like they're on like some new planet that they're chilling on. I don't know when they got there because like this has been a constant, like their Secret Invasion was about them still having to get settled somewhere, even though that was what Captain Marvel was about too. So I guess if you have to watch Secret Invasion to figure out how they get to this like kind of idyllic, almost like, I don't know, like Naboo type planet, right? And they just immediately gets destroyed in like 2 seconds, like by the main villain. And like Captain Marvel can't do anything. Like you just see these people getting wiped out, like millions maybe of people dying. And there's like 30 of them left by the end. And all they're doing is like snarking at Captain Marvel for failing them, for not being good enough. Like, but like not like howling in anger or anything, just like mildly pissed.
Yeah. It's like, nothing means anything. And the multiverse makes that even worse because, anything can happen and there's all sorts of different versions of everything and everyone. And so at some point, there's nothing to hold on to. It's like, I don't give a shit about any of this stuff. To expect me to keep coming back over and over again to something that you have to be a true believer to be able to comprehend. Now they're finally heading into a zone where these films are what's the word I'm looking for? These films are unconsumable to an average everyday person walking in off the street. Like I could walk in off the street to watch Morbius and I would understand what was going on.
This film is not even a sequel to Captain Marvel. It's a sequel to whatever Marvel thing.
It's a sequel to like 5 different things.
And that's been the case with a lot of these movies, and it doesn't seem to benefit them at all. I don't know how the movie is benefited by the fact that they don't tell you who Kamala Khan is or who Monica Rambeau is, or even like how they get their powers, and their powers are a central part of the plot of the movie. And now I've criticized every superhero movie for being an origin story, right? You don't, like Blade is not like his origin takes, 30 seconds. Mm-hmm. But since it is like a central part of the movie, it's weird that you don't know how these people got their powers, because it's like the main plot is like how they, like Kamala's wrist bracelets and how they tie into Monica Rambeau's light powers. And you're just told in passing, oh, I walked through a witch's door and that's how I got my powers. And like, that's kind of not enough in something like this, especially when the MCU has failed to do one thing that comic books are really good at, is making you feel like the world is just filled with superheroes. Yeah. Like there's just a lot of superheroes, and everybody's got a story that they give you, an origin story that they can give you in 30 seconds. Like none of the MCU ever really feels like that. They try to make you feel like every superhero is like a special and unique snowflake, for lack of a better term, and like that all their origins are super important. But then in this one, it's like you're supposed to care about the Marvels, but you don't know who they are.
Yeah. Also, these women get their superhero powers from things that are done to them and nothing that they've earned on their own. Like Tony Stark is a weapons guy who, developed all this stuff that he, repurposed to save the world and whatever. But like, Carol Danvers got zapped and, Kamala Khan, I can't even, does the movie even say how she got her superpowers at all?
She said, well, she does say that the bracelets found her. I don't know if that's literal or metaphorical. It's like, it's
a
impossible
thing that she
to know.
puts on.
There is one key point in the film where she uses her powers when she definitely does not have the bracelets because the bad guy has taken them, and she like makes a giant light hand without the bracelets. I didn't know if that was a continuity error. They probably just said fuck it. They probably just said fuck it at that point.
Like, I can tell you what like Barry Allen's superpower is and how he got it. I have no fucking idea. The Monica Rambeau thing, like, what is her superpower? Can you explain it in a sentence what she can do?
I could not. Captain Marvel, who is like the most powerful character in the entire MCU and can slaughter thousands upon thousands of people at the same time. And we saw that. In fact, that was the end of Captain Marvel, I should tell you, was her. She has amnesia.
She goes ham at the end, right?
Yeah, she kills like hundreds of thousands of people all at once. And in this movie, she has trouble like hand-to-hand fighting with guys in like these really cheap looking suits. I have to say the costumes in this are awful.
I know.
They are so cheap looking, and I am not, like, just incredibly cheap. Like, someone said that the XXX parody of Captain Marvel had better costumes, and I swear to God, if you look, they are better. I think they have more detail to them. Like, these costumes are really, really like cheap and bad looking. Like, even the main characters, like all of them, and it's something I'm seeing in more and more like Disney and Marvel stuff. Like, they're really like, they're cutting corners where they do not need to be cutting corners.
Like, of all the Marvel stuff, like only the Black Panther movies have given a fuck about costume design. Like they made an effort on that movie, but this just looks like I went to fucking Party City and I got the Captain Marvel suit.
Like, it's such a shame. It's like, I don't even know how the actors like sitting there are looking at it. And it's like, this is fine. Like, no, they look so terrible and so flat. Even I'm talking even compared to like the last Captain Marvel film, it's just like a complete downgrade in quality for some reason. I do want to mention before we get too far about the politics of the MCU and Marvel, and another disaster besides Blade and Captain Marvel, the new Captain America film, which was originally titled Captain America New World Order. I believe it's Captain America Now Brave New World, is in reshoots. This was in the Variety article as well.
Yeah.
I have to say, we do not know. This is only speculation, but I am willing to speculate that part of the reason they're having to do reshoots is because the film was meant to feature a character named Sabra, who is an Israeli intelligence officer superhero. Proud Zionist, Sabra, superheroine of the state of Israel. She was, and again, they started making this movie only a couple years ago, so they had time to rethink this. Her name, Sabra, is also, even though it's not based on this, it is evocative of a massacre of Palestinian refugees in Lebanon at Sabra and Shatila in 1982. The character debuted a couple years before that. But this is another thing where, MCU, they generally are pretty cowardly about politics. They try to get a little bit more involved in the past couple of years. Even the Disney Plus, Captain America show,
Falcon,
Winter
Falcon
Soldier,
and the Winter Soldier.
Falcon and Winter Soldier. Yes, he wasn't the Black Captain America. He didn't get to be Captain America until the last episode for some reason. It ends with him saying, "You gotta do better, Senator."
This isn't about easy decisions, Senator. You just don't understand. I'm a black man carrying the stars and stripes. What don't I understand? Every time I pick this thing up, I know there are millions of people out there who are going to hate me for it. Even now, here, I feel it. The stares, the judgment. And there's nothing I can do to change it. Yet I'm still here. No super serum, no blonde hair or blue eyes. The only power I have is that I believe we can do better.
That is the most neoliberal scene I saw. I didn't watch the Winter Soldier show. It's like politics without the politics, though. Like, it's not supposed to offend or upset anyone. But it is that kind of neoliberal politics. Like, we've just got to do better. But doing better means saying that you're going to do better. It doesn't mean doing anything better. You just want to seem like you're above all that because they don't want to alienate the actual like MAGA psychos who actually love this shit. And they're the ones who are so mad about diversity in these films.
Yeah, and so they follow that up with bringing this character in, which I don't think anyone was really asking for. You can look up the character and see, like, the origin story in 1980. It's not great, folks. No. I don't know. Like, is it about the politics you expect of the Middle East in a Marvel comic, right? Like, what you expect. So
they don't use the word Palestinian in the comic book.
No, and I think a Palestinian child is killed, of course, by a Palestinian terrorist, and Hulk lectures both sides, though, so it's kind of even-handed.
He's like Anthony Blinken, but
yes, he really does give a similar speech. Oh,
you both have to stop doing this, even though we're going to arm one side.
That maybe, we're speculating, is the reason why they're now going to have to spend a few $1 million reshooting several significant scenes in the film, including action scenes, which is just... Yeah.
I read that the 3 action scenes are having to be redone entirely. I'm not quite sure whether that theory of yours is correct. I have a feeling that the reason that they're doing all the reshoots is because the movie sucks ass. Harrison Ford is 82 years old. Did you read that? It was in the Hollywood Reporter or something where they were talking about how thrilled they all were to be working with Harrison Ford on a Marvel movie. And Anthony Mackie had this interview where he said that he and Ford were in the tent getting ready to go, and then they told him they were ready, and Harrison Ford said, "Okay, kid, let's go shoot this piece of shit." And Anthony Mackie was like, that's so cute. I mean, that's how a movie star talks. It's like, no, Harrison Ford is like, let's go shoot this piece of shit. He doesn't give a fuck.
Yes. Yeah, he's fucking stoned. He's telling the truth. He says, let's go shoot this piece of shit.
You know, I don't want to be the Lathe of Heaven guy here and wish this into being, but they're doing a 4-month shoot of reshoots on this Captain America movie with an 82-year-old man. Have they considered possibly that he may pass away before they finish?
Oh, no.
Like, he's really old.
Yes, and he doesn't need to be out here doing these movies.
Like, old actors have passed away on the sets of movies before, like during production. And they're already in like a panic mode. Like, the only movie they're putting out next year is Deadpool 3. And this thing has been postponed until next year. This film has been postponed until February of 2025. And they're putting it out on Valentine's Day. Do you think that's a really great day for a superhero movie to come out? You start around March, like the way that they do with the Batman and stuff. You know, February to me is too close to January, which is where they dump shit. Like, that's when they'd put Mordecai out, would be in January.
Yes.
Like hit and run business, let's trick people into seeing a movie. And I want to circle back a little bit to the Marvels about their desperate marketing campaign, because in the summer the trailers were like, oh, it's your favorite trio all together at last, even though you don't know who 2 of them are. And all the wacky adventures they get into. And then I guess they started getting the numbers on pre-sales and realized, oh shit, nobody's going to see this movie. So then the last week of the ads were all clips from Endgame and showing Thanos saying, you know, I have an apprentice or whatever, and then cutting to the villainess from the Marvels.
Oh goodness, I didn't know that.
So like they were running ads during the World Series of like, Robert Downey snapping his fingers, and they showed that incredible girl boss scene from Endgame where all the female superheroes all get together. You know, like it's like, do you remember Endgame, a movie that's only 4 years old? It's like, you guys are desperate now.
Oh, that's really sad, because there's only like 5 people in this movie. Like, if they wanted to bring in like all the different female superheroes, this would probably be like a more interesting film, especially at the end, because it's just the 4 of them the three Marvels and the villain fighting on an empty space station for the fate of the galaxy. It's just them. Like, the villain doesn't even have an army for whatever reason. Like, they just disappear. It's not like they were defeated or anything. They're just not in the movie anymore.
It was like, it does look like an episode of Stargate, except they spent $270 million on this thing. Napoleon, the budget was $130 million, half the price of the Marvels. And Ridley Scott has created like the French, revolutionary, not French Revolutionary War, but like the Napoleonic War on a grand scale. And, for the Marvels, $270 million buys you an empty fucking soundstage for a fist fight between the ladies. Like, I don't see the money on screen anywhere in this film.
Yeah, it does not look good, like, at all. It is. I don't know how these movies cost so much because they look just like the Disney Plus shows, but the Disney Plus shows apparently cost a gajillion dollars.
That space rift in the time and space in the movie, like that force field and whatever. It looked like fucking backsplash from an HGTV show.
Yeah, it looks like a little 3D wallpaper
like
you got
on your screensaver. Oh shit, my computer's been off for half an hour. Oh no, it's the Marvels.
Couple things I do want to cover. All right. The singing scene.
Oh my God.
That scene was so
cruel. Cringe.
I hate that word cringe. I've never said it before.
Sometimes it's necessary.
It's necessary. Like, you could get hurt if you saw that scene like without expecting it. Like, I think it could kill someone because it is so like off tonally, so wrong in tone. Even though the idea, I think, is kind of solid. It's been done before, right? A singing planet, it's been done. A musical interlude has been done. But it opens with so much strange Disney sincerity before bringing any sort of levity or taking the piss out of it, like you would see in almost anything else. Like, it just starts off like is all of a sudden you're in the fucking Little Mermaid, and it's just really like just a strange tonal shift.
Yeah, I mean, I was worried when this movie was coming and people were saying this one's really wacky. And it's like, oh, that's not really the problem. Marvel movies don't need to be wacky. It's not a real change of pace because of all the soy banter and stuff. They really did kick it up a notch here with this musical planet. But it also got me thinking that, one of the ways that they could have made this movie a bigger movie would be to aim it at a gay audience, and so having the musical planet and the camp and also having Ms. Marvel, who seems to have a real gigantic girl crush on Captain Marvel. She seems to be in love with her. And I thought one of the cruelest moments in this movie was when they revealed that Captain Marvel's married. I felt sorry for Iman Vellani because she just found out the girl she likes is straight.
Yeah, it's a strange dynamic because, like, it's not clear. Is Captain Marvel supposed to be like a mother or a grandmother like figure? Because she's like a mother figure to Black Captain Marvel, who was just when I was a kid, Captain Marvel was a black woman. Okay, so we've gone backwards actually as far as progress goes. But when they made Captain Marvel, I've ran about this on the show before, but I was always mad when they made Carol Danvers Captain Marvel, because she was like, I'm no longer going to call myself Miss Marvel, I'm Captain Marvel. I'm like, there was already a female Captain Marvel. There was that she was the main one for like years, but I digress.
In this movie, she's sort of like a Karen. That was another thing I was thinking while watching the movie.
So Black Captain Marvel, she doesn't even get a name until the end. Like Photon. Photon is her bad name that she had to take after losing the Captain Marvel title. She is like pissed off at White Captain Marvel for some reason. You don't really
abandoning
find out
her as a kid, I guess, right? Because that's this thing. Because I never saw the first one, so when they had that montage of all the shit that happened, I was like, "Who are these people?" I have no idea.
Yes, it makes very little sense, even if you saw the first one. But she's just like, you don't really get a sense of her character, except that like at first she's shy and then she's mad. She's like an adult woman, but acting like a kind of surly teenager. And the teenager coded. I don't know how old she's supposed to be. Maybe she's
16.
Is she supposed to be?
I thought she was like 16.
Okay, and Kamala, she's just like one of these one of several self-insert nerd characters who are fans of the IP of the movie that they're in.
Yeah.
And they seem to be in every single big budget movie that's come out in the past, 15 years perhaps.
Well, imagine watching a fucking Star Wars movie where one of the characters is obsessed with Star Wars. It's irritating. Like, why can't this just be itself? Why do I have to see myself on screen, a nerdy fan? You know, I'd actually...
You mean this is the Millennium Falcon and you're Han Solo?
That would make it the worst Star Wars movie of all time if you had a character like that.
Yes.
But Marvel, you know, like I postmodernism and meta narratives and stuff like that, they'd be interesting if they weren't every fucking movie. Like, you know, if you do it every once in a while, it has a novelty, but like, you know, like they might as well have had a character in this movie who was a Disney Plus subscriber.
I mean, I think they should have done that with the brother, because I actually like the family. Like, Kamala Khan's family were actually kind of interesting. Like, if you want to do the self-referential fan stuff with them, okay, they're normal humans. Mm-hmm. She's supposed to be a superhero. Give me something a little bit more to work with. But maybe enough on that.
Well, I do want to say though that of all the performances, I thought Iman Vellani's was the best because she was the one most happy to be there. Everybody else seemed to be there against their will, but she was really excited.
Oh, Sam Jackson ran. Yeah. So he ran in this one. So maybe he gave a little bit.
He looked really bored. He looked like he was doing one of his AT&T ads, you know, on a space station saying, you know, this new phone, you know.
How has he been in so many of these? Sam Jackson, we thought we had something. We knew we had something really special in him.
We love him.
We love him. And then for 15 years, we just shove him in this shit.
Between this and Star Wars, you know, it's like, I mean, you know, everybody thought that it was really cool that Samuel Jackson was going to be in the MCU and that he was going to be in Star Wars, but he's not being allowed to do any Sam Jackson coolness. He's just like, you know, it would be funny if they let him swear and drink.
Look, I think Mace Windu in the second film, yes. Third film, he gets a little flavor. He gets a little bit. He gets a little Sam Jackson.
Yeah, just a little though. Like he should have been all in the whole time. I would have loved his character from Jackie Brown in Star Wars would have been amazing.
All right, and so talking about the future of the MCU, I do want to.
What future? What future?
Which one? All right. So the Marvel sets a couple up. I want to talk about one outside though.
Okay.
It was mentioned in the Variety article. The plan was to release like 17 or 18 films with Jonathan Majors Kang as the main villain, even though he's already appeared in Ant-Man, which for a Marvel film was kind of a flop, and he lost to Ant-Man. He already got beat by Ant-Man.
He got beat by Loki in the series too.
I think twice now.
He's
like
died
they got season
twice.
2, right?
He's died twice, and I will bet you a nickel that there was a Kang post-credit scene in the Marvels that's been cut out.
So he's had some serious troubles in real life. We don't have to get into him. You can look him up. But the MCU has built their entire, you know, next several years around him, and they're thinking about just replacing the character with Doctor Doom. And I just ask, why? Who cared about Kang this much in the first place? Why? Who wants to see the same villain in like more than one movie in the first? Like, it's not like it's the fucking Joker or something, you know. It's like generally speaking, that was the idea. These comic book characters, one movie and you're done.
Yeah, I think that Marvel would be more interesting if you had all one-off movies and the occasional team up. But this model that they have now, it's a problem that has doomed the comic book industry, is this idea that you have to read every single comic book to understand the next comic book. You know, it doesn't port over to cinema, I don't think, because movies come and go and tastes change. And that's the real thing that Marvel's going through now, is they have this business model that is based purely on the success of the last few years and not on future earnings. Like, they just want to perpetuate the money that they've already made. Like, imagine starting to get into the Marvel Cinematic Universe with Ant-Man 3. Like, there's no entry point. You have to already know all this shit to watch this stuff. And new audiences, what are they supposed to do? Go watch a movie from 15 years ago to keep up? Like, if it feels like homework, people already have homework to do.
All right. Well, you have homework for the Marvels, like post after the fact, because it brings in two different things at the end. Echo, who is the sidekick of Hawkeye. You wouldn't know this from watching the movie. I just know this from reading the comics. You wouldn't even know this from reading comics unless you had read comics post Boom, actually, because I think she's a newer character. So you would have no idea who the fuck Echo was. They're supposed to be forming a Young Avengers team. There's a teaser for that. Probably not gonna happen if we're looking at the box office returns. Honestly, I don't.
You know what? Another funny thing though is that Echo, all the other shows, all the other Disney Plus shows come out on a week by week basis, but it just so happens that the show about the indigenous, deaf character. They're just going to put all those shows out at once. They're just going to dump the whole series on Disney Plus, and they're also marketing it as Marvel Selects, which means it's a program that you can watch without.
I think it's Spotlight,
right.
Marvel Spotlight.
Right. Marvel Selects was probably was one of the runner-up names, but anyway, Marvel Spotlight is for shows that you can watch that you don't need to have watched the other shows to watch, and it's like. This is your problem right here, is like you're treating what is the normal experience of watching a story as an exception to this idea that you have to enroll in university to watch these things. You have to take 15 courses to understand. The thing about Echo is that it is a sequel, isn't it? It is hooked up to Hawkeye. But they're telling you that it isn't, because now Marvel is terrified that people think they need to watch all these things to be able to watch the next thing. And since they're not watching anything anymore, they're not going to watch the future stuff. So they have to break out of this headspace really fast, I think. And the fact that the Marvels has bombed about as hard as I've ever seen a movie bomb, for a movie that the previous movie made $1 billion, like this thing should have made at least $70 million, and it made 47.
All right. And you mentioned earlier, about time and about how movies take a lot of time to make, and time can kind of slip away from you. And I feel like the Marvels, the main stinger at the end, is something that people might have been excited about 5-10 years ago, but now is maybe too late.
Yeah.
And I've even talked about this on the show, right? So when the MCU started, it was when Marvel did not have the rights to the actual good Marvel characters, which are the X-Men. The X-Men are the good Marvel characters. That's where all the stuff was happening. Those were the most popular comics. That's what people liked, and that's why they were able to sell it off. Along with Spider-Man, and I guess Fantastic Four was up there. For some reason, Ghost Rider, Punisher, all that jazz. The Marvels ends with Monica Rambeau ending up in some sort of X-Men universe with, oh baby, I hear the blues are calling, tossed salad and scrambled eggs. Fraser Crane as Beast.
Yeah.
CGI, full CGI Beast. No, they did not get him out of the house for that one. He just did the voice. And so this is it. Yes, the X-Men finally in the MCU, which people have been asking for years and years and years. But realize, and we've been talking about, like, maybe this will be the thing that will save it. This will be the thing that will reinvigorate the MCU, bringing in all these great characters, all these X-Men. I don't know if that's true, because I've been looking at the numbers, right? And I was just thinking about, okay, people have fond memories of these X-Men movies, right? And maybe it's been long enough that they can bring them back and there'll be some excitement. But I looked at the numbers and notice this. Before the MCU started, they put out 3 X-Men movies. X-Men, X2, and X-Men Last Stand. Since the MCU started in 2008, there have been 10 X-Men movies released. Soon to be 11 with Deadpool 3. So I don't know how even a normal person would know that this is a reboot, because they're about to see Wolverine and Hugh Jackman next summer.
Yeah.
So there's nothing new that you're bringing in. You're like continuing with the same like old characters and old actors too.
Well, this is the other thing that drives me up the wall about Marvel, and it's, again, because I don't know everything chapter and verse for all my complaining about Marvel. I don't know all the details of everything. My jokes are mostly about the fact that this stuff is just so all encompassing and it's very cliquey, like for all their complaints about how Scorsese's an elitist, like this is an in-group. If you love this Marvel stuff, you have to already be on board to understand what people are talking about. What I was getting to, just Leslie, just let me organize my thoughts for a sec. One thing that bugs me is that Marvel's always doing things for the first time all the time. Like they've had like 9 movies where they've said, this is the first gay character in the MCU. Black Panther's the first black superhero. It's like, no, what about Blade? And so this time they're like, the X-Men are finally here in the MCU. And I was like, but wait a minute. In Doctor Strange, wasn't Charles Xavier in it?
Yes.
Like it's not the first time. And they're like, oh no, but we weren't able to use the name Charles Xavier in the last one. This one, though, is Beast. And it's like, I don't know how many millennials are really excited to see the Kelsey Grammer character from a movie from 17 years ago. This stuff doesn't really mean much anymore. I don't understand why Disney's not just doing a hard reset and making all new X-Men movies instead of regurgitating stuff like, isn't this like Hugh Jackman's like 10th or 11th movie as Wolverine? And didn't he do one a couple of years ago that was supposed to be the farewell to the character?
Yes, Logan was. And it was like presented as like a very somber farewell to the character.
It was taken seriously, but we all thought that we were never going to see him again. And I wished that we never did. But here he is. And that now that the Marvels has tanked this hard, they are going to find that $50 million to get Robert Downey to come back as Iron Man.
Oh.
And then that negates the whole thing about Endgame. That was supposed to be the big farewell, and it was not. It was a stunt, And this is what bugs me ultimately about all this stuff is that it's not going to mean anything to future generations. A movie like Killers of the Flower Moon was made for the next 50 years of audiences to enjoy, but who the fuck is going to know what the Marvels is in 50 years?
Even Blade.
Yeah.
Just Blade. You can just watch that movie.
Blade is going to rip every time when you watch that film.
Even some of the lesser superhero movies, like yes, they still tried to be movies. The Marvels, Ant-Man, Quantumania, that Doctor Strange movie, even though it was directed by Sam Raimi,
right.
Like they're not really movies. Like they just feel like just parts of like parts of an ongoing TV series. And I know we've been saying that since the beginning of Marvel, but it's like gotten ridiculously true now because even the sets design, the characters, the writing has all gotten down to basically like Mighty Morphin Power Rangers level.
Yeah. It would be like having this rabid fan base ready to defend anybody who says anything bad about the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers.
Honestly, their Power Rangers series, they are much better than the MCU. There are some series there like actually have like better writing, better character development. Yeah. It's just the Marvels. It's sad. I wish it was a good movie because I like the idea. There's nothing wrong with having diverse superheroes. I would like to see like a cool girl power superhero movie with some actual good superheroes, which Captain Marvel is not one of them. I don't think it never has been. Carol Danvers is just like she was. Her old costume, people knock it, but that was like, it was a look, okay? It was interesting. It was something that made you look. And she seemed to have a cooler attitude back then. Now she's just like a super cop, a super soldier. Yeah. She's literally just a super soldier.
Hey, you know what's funny though in this movie is they didn't mention the Air Force. Remember how she was in the fucking military in the last one? And in fact, the Air Force used the movie as a recruitment tool to get more female cadets in the Air Force. And then in this movie just pretends that never happened. It doesn't mention the fact that she's like in the army.
Yeah, they're like in whatever space army like Nick Fury has going on. Whatever.
She's like the Sabra of the US, right? Because like she's a superhero who works with the military.
Yeah, no, actually, no, she doesn't do that. Like In the first one, she gets amnesia and she does a bunch of war crimes for the Kree for like 30 years. And then she comes back to Earth and decides to like fuck up the Kree, but she never actually does anything for the U.S. government. I think in the comics, yes, but in the movies, it's strange. Like she just kind of keeps flying off into the middle of space saying, I have to go. The Zordon is challenging the Grim Keepers on Finkeldorf or whatever the fuck. And she has to, raise up the power shields. Oh God. The end of this movie, she flies into she flies into the sun. She has to reignite the sun, which she could have done. Okay, if she could do it, she could have done it from the beginning of the movie, and the bad guy wouldn't have had to massacre 99% of the Skrulls in the first place. I digress. But they just kind of give up by the end of this movie and just say, fuck it. She flies into the dying sun on the Kree home world that died in part because she created the Civil War by killing off their master AI.
She's pretty genocidal, isn't she, Captain Marvel?
Yeah, that's like her main power is just blowing up shit, except when she can't. Yeah. When she has to do like one-on-one hand-to-hand fighting with people and can barely
But
hold
how
on.
did she get such superpowers from this relatively meager event that happened in her life that is so powerful that she could restart the sun? I just don't understand the scale.
It was like some kind of missile that the aliens had made, and she shoots it to blow it up, and all the power ends up going into her. And she has some sort of special physiognomy where she doesn't die because of it. She instead was able to absorb it. It doesn't make any sense, and it's not that interesting either. Like that is one origin story that could have skipped. They could have just said, "All right, I'm just Captain Marvel. I have all these superpowers."
But like
whatever.
Anybody on the street could tell you how Spider-Man got his powers. I have no idea how Ms. Marvel got hers or anything. And also, the villain in this movie sucks.
Yeah, I like that she was. I like that she was bigger and taller than the good guys. I like that. I like that she kind of had, a reason for what she was doing, even though what she was doing made no sense. Yeah. Like she was stealing water and air and energy from inhabited planets to give to her planet when she can travel anywhere instantly in the galaxy. Mm-hmm. She could have just taken this stuff from an asteroid. Mm-hmm. Nice ice asteroid. Get you all the water you need for your little planet. And and all of this is executed. It sounds like high sci-fi stuff, but it's executed in like the way Disney Channel would execute. It's not even Star Trek level of semi-scientific explanation. It's just the silliest, laziest type of sci-fi you can see. And I feel like I'm being too mean to the movie because there's some funny parts in it. Maybe some of this could have worked if it was a real movie, but ultimately, this is one that I would not even recommend people watching, even if it was even in pirated mode. It's like it's not even on the airplane. Do you need to watch this? We'll go watch an old episode of Bones or whatever is on there.
Watch it on Tubi in about 4 years when Disney's out of money and they have to sell all their movies to Tubi.
I don't even know if you would, because guess what's going to be on Tubi? Blade's still going to be on Tubi. Xena Warrior Princess is going to be on Tubi. There's going to be cooler shit than this on Tubi. All right, Jesse. Thank you so much. Sorry for keeping you long there, but thank you so much for coming on. Where can people find you? Where can people listen to Junk Filter?
Well, Junk Filter, my podcast, is available wherever you get your podcasts. We're going to be doing a little tribute to the Marvels, but I'm going to be comparing it to The Heroic Trio, the Hong Kong action movie with Michelle Yeoh, because I want to demonstrate to my listeners how you can actually make an incredible female superhero movie. And I'm looking forward to that one. I'm on Twitter under my name and also on Blue Sky under my name. And you can also find the Junk Filter podcast wherever you get your podcasts and at Junk Filter Pod on Twitter.
All right, folks, that was Struggle Session. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much, Jesse. Free Palestine. Peace.